Just like the real world, FF14 has many different ways to display your achievements, your status, and the amount of time and effort you've sunk into the game and its many different types of content. In FF14, there are 4 main ways to flex for everyone to know just how much of a Sigma male you are. Mounts are a universal status symbol across many MMOs and common in FF14 too, as they often represent that you've conquered specific challenges. Glamour is a different type of flex, as some pieces are locked behind hard combat content, while others require you to grind dungeons or to have the guild to throw at crafters. The third common flex is owning a house, only trumped by having a well-decorated house or a themed house, which lets everyone know that you're a player who enjoys pain because you battle Square Enix's god-awful interior design system on a daily basis. The problem with these flexes is that they are situational. You can only flex them out in the overworld areas, you can only showcase your house by luring people there after advertising on Party Finder or Discord, and a lot of people have no eye for glam, so they have no idea where specific pieces came from that aren't the shiny ultimate weapons or the relic weapons. This leaves us with flex number 4, titles. FF14 has a lot of titles in the game, and by default everyone around you can see them next to your name. A lot of these titles are insanely difficult to achieve, and today we're going to look at my top 14 titles in FF14 to flex on your imaginary friends with, or that one aim to clear group for a friend that you pretend to enjoy joining. As a disclaimer, these are of course subject to my opinion. If you don't agree with me, I don't care. I've excluded number 1, treasure hunt titles as they are RNG as fuck. Number 2, most legacy and time limited titles as they are currently unobtainable, with 1 or 2 exceptions I'll discuss later. The variables I took into consideration: 1, the amount of skill needed to achieve this; 2, the amount of time needed to achieve a title; 3, the rarity of an achievement using the data from FFXIV Collect and from Dala Achievements. This data is not perfect, but it's a great sample size, and a good factor to consider here as well is popularity of content. Much more people play ultimate raids, for instance, than ocean fishing. The last factor I consider is subjective difficulty. Based on my personal understanding of the game, I find some things much harder and much more impressive than others. A good example is soloing Palace of the Dead is much more impressive to me than getting a 2000 Mahjong rating. Both are objectively difficult in their own right, but one of them has much more pressure attached, is much more difficult in terms of execution, and takes more time. Coming in at number 14 is the High Roller. To get this title, you're going to have to spend a lot of time in the Gold Saucer, which is appropriate given that at the time of rating, the Make It Rain campaign is on, and now is a great time to get some MGP. This is not as insane as some other achievements, but still hard in its own right. To get the High Roller title, to become a High Roller, you'll have to get the 7 big Gold Saucer achievements. You have to place first in 500 Chocobo races, you have to win 100 Triple Triad tournament matches, you have to win 1000 Triple Triad roulette matches, win the Typhon Gate 10 times, complete 100 gates in total, and win 1 million MGP from Mini Cactpot and 1 million MGP from Jumbo Cactpot respectively. Lots of people love spending time in the Gold Saucer and they'll have a fun time doing this, but don't be fooled, this is not an easy title to get. Placing first in 500 Chocobo races is no joke, especially if you play on a server where people do this frequently and you're playing against other players on a regular basis. The Typhon Gate is pure RNG, but not too difficult to do if you know the best spots to stand, but winning 1 million MGP from Mini Cactpot and Jumbo Cactpot respectively is purely luck. If you have bad luck, bad RNG, and let's say you're even averaging 5k per week from Jumbo Cactpot alone, you're still going to take 200 weeks to get this achievement. So this is a big time sink, requires quite a bit of luck, and in the case of Triple Triad and Chocobo races, a good amount of skill. High Rollers, keep rolling. For the title in the 13th spot, I feel kind of obligated to make Tim Burton jokes, but let's skip right into that and talk about getting the Big Fish title. You unlock this by getting the achievements and titles for catching 204 types of big fish in the source and 45 types of big fish in the first. Some of these big fish have really specific weather conditions to allow them to spawn in the first place. Then on top of that, you need to have luck and patience. Some require several mooches in order to get them to bite, and some just have a really naturally low chance of biting in the first place. So this is something only to do if you love fishing. Lots of people hate it, and I am on the fence about it. I do enjoy fishing, but catching a big fish takes the fun, chill vibe out of it, and it can get a bit stressful because some of these big fish you have like a 2-minute window to catch. If it doesn't bite, you might take hours for it to spawn again, and it can be a real pain in the ass. If you are like me and somehow you end up playing a fishing mini game in every fucking game that you play, this title was made for you. You can now go be a big fish in a small pond of achievement titles, and finally your fishing achievements might actually mean something. Good luck catching these big fish, boys. On to the next one. For number 12, we have a title that a lot of players want to have because it sounds quite funny, and that is the World Class Troller. To achieve this title, you need to earn a cumulative total of 3 million points while ocean fishing. For those unaware, ocean fishing happens every 2 hours in Limsa Lominsa, lasts for roughly 15 to 20 minutes, and the average fisher will probably do 5 to 8,000 points per run. Good fishers will do 8 to 12,000 points per run. Really big brain fishers will do 12 to 20,000 points per run. And assuming you are a Giga Chat fisher that is highly optimized and best in slot melded, and you're averaging 20,000 points every run, you're still looking at 150 ocean fishing ventures, which is roughly 3,000 minutes or 50 hours of gameplay. This does not include the time spent waiting between each of those runs, and doesn't account for you having a bad run. So if you want to be a world-class troller, you better start ocean fishing. This can be combined with a big fish achievement, so that's kind of cool. There are some achievements and titles and mounts you can get from ocean fishing as well, so there is an upside to grinding this out. Next on the list is a title that I wasn't quite sure how to rank, because this is The Fortunate, and to get this title you need to clear 10,000 fates. Now, this is obviously not a high skill ceiling kind of title, but this is a massive time investment. Now, fates are cheesable by blue mages, that's for sure, but 10,000 of them is a metric fuckton. Assuming you are cheesing with a party of 8 and are clearing fates in a minute each, 10,000 minutes is still equivalent to 200 hours of gameplay. This doesn't account for travel time between fates or the fact that some fates will simply take more than 1 minute to clear no matter what you do. After over a year of playing, having grinded fates for the yokai event, for resistance weapons, for shared fates, for triple triad cards, and a few achievements, I've only done close to 900 fates in total. This one doesn't require a lot of skill, but it requires so much time. Some of my friends who've been playing since Heavensward have barely 2,500 fates, so this is the kind of title you need to really go and dedicate the grind to. For number 10, we come in with our first real combat title, and that is the Azure and Omega. This one requires you to clear Omega 4, Omega 8, and Omega 12 Savage as a full blue party with no echo on. Now, people that raid seriously as blue mages are insane, and you can come to my Twitch stream and watch me and my blue static currently attempt this title. I find blue quite fun, getting all the spells and learning optimal chi strats per fight is very entertaining, but blue is also very unforgiving to raid as, and the grind is real. This normally requires a highly coordinated 8-man team to execute, and at the time of writing it took my group of friends around 25 hours of progging just to clear T5, T9, and T13, and the Omega raids are so much harder. For number 9 on the list, we have a personal favorite of mine, and that is the Hoarder. Now, this may have a negative connotation in the real world, but getting the Hoarder title in Final Fantasy XIV is nutty. You have to discover 10,000 pieces of the Accursed Hoard in the deep dungeons, which are currently Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High. Now, the Accursed Hoard is a golden treasure chest you can discover in these deep dungeons. If you get a Pomander of Intuition, you have an easy time finding them, but finding Pomanders of Intuition is quite rare, as those only drop from specific chests. You have a chance of randomly stumbling across one of these hoards as you walk through the floors of a deep dungeon, but the chance is rather low as not every floor has one of these on it, and the floors can be quite big, and you are under a specific time limit. To give you some context, in my clear run of Palace of the Dead 1 to 200, we obtained around 10, maybe 15 Accursed Hoards in total. Now, I'm assuming that a party that's highly efficient at speedrunning and farming the lower floors in Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead can rack up quite a few of these in a short amount of time, but they'll probably cap at 10 hordes per hour in total. Getting this title is a tremendous time sink. Now, you can get some really cool drops from the Accursed Hoard, especially at the higher floors of both of the deep dungeons, or at the deeper levels in that context, but still, this is not something that you can just go and do. Even finding a group to speedrun and farm these with is going to be quite a challenge, because this can get mind-numbingly boring, and as someone who's played a lot of Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High, has cleared them, does these frequently for for leveling alts. I'm not even at 1,000 yet, and you have to get 10,000 for these. And I've spent hundreds of hours in those 2 dungeons. So if you see a hoarder around, stay away from them. They're probably insane. Coming in at number 8 is Gunhilder's Blade. To obtain this title, you have to get 2 other achievements, which are Close Encounters and Close Encounters of the Zednoran kind. This means you have won the 3 duels in the Bosnian Southern Front and the 3 duels in the Zadnor region. Now, this is much easier to get nowadays than upon release because we've established so many different cheese strategies for these regions, and we've optimized these duels, and there's a notoriety system to help you get into the duels, and you have the valor system to increase your damage, but the duels are still quite unforgiving, especially if you're unprepared. You should treat them like a extreme trial or a savage raid in terms of difficulty, especially if you're not going to cheese the fights. The longer they go on, the harder they get. This title was more impressive to own when you had it right after release of Zadnor, but even to this day, making sure you get into the duels, that means you are playing specific skirmishes and critical engagements without taking any damage. This is not an easy thing to do, requires preparation, requires individual preparation per duel, and still requires you to execute them perfectly. So while some people shit on people that have this title as, oh, you just cheesed it and you took the easy route, they had to put work in, they put hours of farming in to get into these duels and to clear them successfully. So, all you Gunhilder Blades out there, I salute you. Coming in at number 7 is Rhalgr's Right Fist. And now let's not think about all the things Rhalgr might be doing with his right fist, but to get this achievement, you need to record 5,000 kills in the Feast. The Feast is Final Fantasy's arena-style, small-scale PvP combat, and if you are a kill-stealing, tremendous brain DPS player getting 3 kills per match, you can do the math yourself, but you'll need over 1,500 matches of that type of performance to get this title. So unless you are grinding the Feast on a daily basis and you're putting in a lot of matches per week, and let's say you're averaging hundreds of matches a season, you might be getting close to this if you started doing this a few seasons ago. So if you see anyone that has Rhalgr's Right Fist as their title, maybe shake their left hand instead. Going in at number 6 is the big brother to Rhalgr's Right Fist, and that is the Alpha Wolf title. To achieve the Alpha Wolf title, you need to get on your grind set, baby. You gotta get on your Sigma mindset, and you gotta triumph in 5,000 matches in the Feast or the Fold. If you are a GigaChat PvP player and you have a 65% win rate, you'll still have to participate in over 8,000 of these fucking matches. The average Feast match can go 3 to 4 minutes long, so I'm assuming the only players even close to this have been playing the Feast for the last 7, 8, 9 seasons. But now, not only do you have to kill people, you also have to carry people on your team. Most players that play the Feast don't play pre-made, right? They play solo queue, and that means they're not only killing people, they're also carrying 3 people that they can't even voice chat with, that they can only communicate with in-game pings and a shorthand communication system. So anyone that has the Alpha Wolf title, hats off to you, because you had to spank everyone in the PvP player base on your server and in your data center most likely. Very few players in Final Fantasy XIV even play PvP seriously, so if you are one of those players, you're one of those 1%ers that play PvP, you've now reached the 0.01% of that player base, and you deserve the Alpha Wolf title, unironically. Congratulations, because this is a big boy title. Now, if you thought getting 5,000 kills or 5,000 wins in PvP is grindy, let's talk about something that's even more insane. Let's talk about our first hunt title, and that is at number 5, the Ultimate Thrill Seeker. To achieve the Ultimate Thrill Seeker title, you need to kill 5,000 S-rank monsters. S-ranks are rare, and when they spawn, they're often nuked down within minutes by a large amount of players gathering in their spawn point once someone goes to one of the big cities to call out the spawn. Even if players are polite and they're willing to wait a few minutes for others to show up, you have to get there ASAP. There are 35 S-ranks in the game, and some have respawn timers that go up to 132 hours long. Unless you are proactively participating in hunt trackers and cross-world link shells and are attending every single one of these that you can, you're unlikely to ever get this title. I personally only know of 2 people that have this title, and they're the ones that are almost always organizing the hunt trains on our data center. When you think about the amount of time invested to get this title, and how much attention you have to pay to these hunts popping up and to keeping an eye on the respawn timer, and having an SSD and a processor quick enough to server hop, to load into the zone, and to get there in time to kill it, 5,000 S ranks is insane just because of how few there are. You can go whole days on data centers without one of these spawning if you're unlucky. And some people don't report when they show up, right? They just get their FC to come, they get their friends to come, and they kill them real quick. And that's the way it goes. That's the name of the game. So anyone that's an ultimate thrill seeker has dedicated themselves to the hunt. They have put in an insane amount of time, and they must have been doing this for months and months and months on end. To give you reference, I try to do these whenever they pop up and whenever I can get there, assuming I'm not in a dungeon or something. And with having played over a year now, I've done less than 50 of these S ranks, and that is with me really wanting to go there and kill them as quickly as I can. When I didn't have the game installed on my SSD, I would show up in the zone where the S rank is, and I couldn't even get it to spawn on my screen. I couldn't even see it load in. It would just be dead. So if you're ever planning to get after this title, I recommend you play the game on an SSD, and you're ready to be very, very, very patient, because this one is a tremendous grind. And with that, we are entering the top 4 of this list, and for spot number 4, we have 2 titles tied for the spot, and that is the Legend and the Perfect Legend. To get the Legend, you have to clear the Unending Coil of Bahamut, and to get the Perfect Legend, you have to clear the Epic of Alexander, respectively. These are 2 ultimate raids, meaning they are some of the hardest PvE content in the game. Now, you might be asking, Al, where the fuck is my title, the Ultimate Legend? Why did you not include Uwu in this part of the list? And that is 1, because Uwu has a significantly higher clear rate than UCOB and T. And 2, because every Ultimate Raider I'm friends with told me that Uwu is nowhere near as hard as UCOB and T, respectively. Now, of course, Uwu is still an ultimate raid, so if you have the Ultimate Legend title, congratulations. However, getting the Legend and Perfect Legend is a step higher, and therefore they made the list and Uwu did not. Ultimate raids are the pinnacle of PvE content in Final Fantasy XIV, and the reason I rank these so much higher than the PvP titles is because they're also much more competitive. If you are an endgame player, you know that ultimate raids are much more attractive and much more frequently attempted than, let's say, the PvP titles. In PvP, you can theoretically carry yourself to any of those titles I mentioned just by grinding it out on your own and hoping for the best in solo queue. But when you get to an ultimate raid, that is no longer the option. There are no options like that. In ultimate raids, you require a highly coordinated 8-man party that's able to communicate, to study together, and to really get on the same page. You can't just go in and get carried. That is almost impossible in an ultimate raid, and quite frankly, almost every mechanic is designed in a way where if one player fucks it up, you're almost guaranteed to wipe, or to have a much harder time getting a clear later down the run. I wouldn't say that these are impossible. Of course not. You can see that according to the data we have here, over 5% of players have the Legend title and over 6% of players have the Perfect Legend title. And that's because Ultimate raiding is very popular among endgame players. If you are a competitive player, if you are a person that enjoys PvE content, Ultimate is often the content you aspire to do. Lots of people attempt this, and way more people attempt Ultimate content than they do PvP. And that's why the Ultimate skill ceiling is, in my opinion, higher than that from PvP, mainly because this requires a full team effort, and there's no easy way around it. And while it is true that Ultimates have gotten more accessible and in some cases easier due to better items being available now than when these were released, these are still tremendous achievements to complete. And if you have completed UCOP and T, you're most likely excited to see what the next Ultimate is going to be like an Endwalker. And I'm sure we're going to watch the World First race together and be in awe of the things Square Enix is going to come throw at us. But at this point, if you've cleared Ultimate, you have seen the hardest and the best that Square Enix has to offer us. And for all you Legends and Perfect Legends out there, now that I've buttered you up a bit, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Next up on the list, number 3, I once again have 2 titles sharing this spot, and they are personal favorites of mine, probably my favorite titles on this list, and the ones I'll be aspiring for in the near future as well. We have the Necromancer and the Lone Hero title. Necromancer and Lone Hero are granted upon a player clearing Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High on their own, soloing deep dungeons entirely on your own. This is a very, very challenging thing to do. Soloing a deep dungeon requires a shitload of patience, a very precise sync to level 60 and 70 rotation, intimate knowledge of every mob and boss mechanic that these have to offer you, and most of all, a big amount of luck, especially in the later floors. In PUTD, I've personally made it to floor 150 on my own, and it took me hours. Now, the reason I'm putting Necromancer and Lone Hero a step higher than the Legend and Perfect Legend is because you can't just reset. You can't go out and you can't say, oh shit, okay, I fucked up my opener, better go try again. Now, a ultimate fight is like 15 plus minutes long in terms of fight duration. Now, the thing is, Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High get progressively harder with every floor set, and once you reach later floor sets, if you die, you're getting yeeted the fuck back to floor 1. You gotta start from scratch. Now, obviously, when the hardest parts are the last 20% of the content, and to get to the hardest part of that content, you gotta spend somewhere between 5 to 6 hours of fighting your way through the easier parts, and then you get one attempt, and if you fuck it up, you go back to square one. That is painful. And it's happened to me a bunch of times, and there are content creators out there who do nothing but solo PUTD and Heaven on High, and they've cleared it on several classes, and my god, these are some big dick players. Holy shit. Now, the other worst part of soloing deep dungeons is you have no one to blame but your fucking self. It's just you. There's not, like, beyond bad RNG and bad luck, right? If you die, it's your fault. It's you who fucked up. Right, there's just nothing else to it. Now, in an ultimate raid, right, you might be really confident in the mechanics, you might be playing your part perfectly, but you gotta wait for 7 other players to get on the same page. In Heaven on High and in Palace of the Dead, you are the only page, it's all up to you, and there's a very good chance that one slip of concentration, one misstep is gonna reset your progress of 6, 7, maybe 8 hours, depending on your pace and depending on your luck. Achieving Necromancer and Lone Hero is a tremendous achievement, a pure solo achievement, and I love that this is in the game. This type of solo content is a shit that I live for, and me, along with many other players, love the deep dungeons. Now, placing these above some of the legend titles might be controversial to some of you, but given how much rarer these are and how much longer of an individual grind these can be, I find Necromancer and Lone Hero to be perfect for my number 3. Taking the number 2 spot on my list is another pair of titles, and I know that's been a trend for the last couple of ones, but there's a good reason these are paired together, and that is Of the First Pack and Leader of the Pack. To achieve Of the First Pack and Leader of the Pack, you have to finish a feast season rank number 1 on your data center at the end of the season, either as a party or as a solo player. If you've never seen Of the First Pack or Leader of the Pack in the wild while AFKing in Lim's Elements or something, there's a good reason, because you're unlikely to ever see anyone with a title in the wild that has this, as only a single player or a party can achieve this per data center per season. Given that we are on season 20 of the Feast at the moment, there'll be 20 people in your data center that have Of the First Pack and 80 that have Leader of the Pack by the end of Shadowbringers. These are likely the rarest titles in the game. Finishing a feast season in Diamond is already a massive accomplishment, but at ranking number 1 takes a very specific skill set that's frankly very uncommon in a PvE-dominated game like FF14. Anyone that plays at Platinum and above is likely really fucking good at PvP, and when you solo, you always play around the solo queue RNG of getting a good team. When you play in a party, you'll be up against very coordinated and mechanically gifted PvP gods, so this is not an easy achievement. This pair of titles makes all the other PvP titles on this list seem like chump change in comparison. Those are noob achievements compared to this one. Getting 5,000 kills can be done over time. Winning 5,000 matches over time is also just a long grind. However, ranking number 1, that is something that is not done accidentally. That's not something you just put more time in and end up achieving. The number 1 ranking for both solo and party will change over the course of a season as people win and lose matches and people go up in ranking and go down. So ending the season is not actually secured up until the last day. right? You need to finish rank number 1, not just be ranked number 1 for a day. And that's what makes this title so impressive, and PvP seasons get very intense towards the end, as everyone is duking it out to get to the highest level that they can. As a popular streamer would say at this point, this is big dick energy, and I'm in awe of people that achieve this. So this is the kind of flex that you rarely get to see. So if you run into a player that has one of these 2 titles and you are being flexed on with them, just take a bow, because they deserve it. Now, before we get to the number 1 title, before we get to the title that I believe is the biggest flex in the game, I have an honorable mention to talk about, and that is Saint of the Firmament. Saint of the Firmament is a crafter/gatherer achievement and a title that you were able to get if you placed top 12 in any of the Disciple of the Hand or Disciple of the Land jobs during the Firmament restoration rankings over the stages 2 to 4 throughout the Shadowbringer expansion. Per server, there are 11 DOL/DOH jobs in total, and only the top 12 ranking players per category is able to get the Saint, which means there are a total of 132 Saints per restoration stage, and we had 3 stages where you can get the Saint title, meaning there are only 396 Saints of the Firmament per server. On some servers, this number is even lower, because some insane motherfuckers out there got this title 1, 2, or 3 times. I know people that have gotten this title twice. Actually nuts, which means 396 is the maximum number of Saints. It could be lower, depends on your server. The reason why this title is also such a tremendous flex is because it's the equivalent of a PvP title for crafting and gathering. Each Ishgard restoration phase lasted for 10 days, in which the participating players could submit really high level items to the Ishgard restoration and score points accordingly. Anyone that has this title most likely spent a very sweaty 10 days doing nothing but crafting and gathering, and probably spending millions of gil on the perfect melds and on all the materials. As mentioned, this title was time limited and it could have only been achieved in those 3 Ishgard restoration phases, so anyone that has this, they are a true crafter or gatherer. And we have finally reached it. We finally have come to number 1. This video has gone on for super fucking long, but let's keep going. Let's talk about number 1. The title that I believe is the biggest flex in FF14, the Hand of Creation. This is likely the worst grind in the game, worse than Hoarder and on par with Ultimate Thrillseeker. This title doesn't sound as badass as the combat titles, but my god, this is only for the truly big brain players out there. To get this title, you need to score 500,000 Skyward score points for every single crafter job in the Firmament where the Ishgardian restoration took place. To conceptualize how hard this is, for the Saint of the Firmament title, people grinded crafting and gathering non-stop for 10 days straight. Most people that placed in the top 12 scored somewhere between 200,000 and 2 million points, depending on how competitive the server was. The amount of points you get per item submitted depends on the level of quality you can bring the item to, with expert crafts bringing in by far the most points for crafters. Let's assume you're an expert endgame crafter. You have perfect pentamelted gear, you live next to the market board, your retainers are nothing but crafting materials, you have more gil than you know what to do with, you legitimately enjoy crafting. You've long since transcended teamcraft, you can just freestyle every craft you make, macros are for noobs, you know what every trade mentor wishes they knew about the game, and you are what they wish they were. So let's look at the expert crafts themselves. Assume you're scoring 820 points per craft, you have to do over 600 crafts per DOH job, around 610 to be exact. 610 expert crafts times 8 crafter jobs, that's almost 4,900 expert crafts. Assuming 2 minutes per craft, you're looking at almost 10,000 minutes of non-stop crafting, which is over 160 hours of just sitting on the ground in that crafter stance, not accounting for any of the other factors. And I haven't even mentioned how hard these expert crafts can be. To get into the highest tier of points per craft, you cannot rely on macros. You have to pay attention and respond to the changes in your crafting condition after every action. You need to actually understand crafting and be good at it, and not just plug in a rotation you got from Teamcraft. Expert crafts are the savage equivalent of crafting. It's possible to macro some of the expert crafts, but you'll never get into the highest tier of points, meaning you have to pump out far more items to make up for the loss of points here. The point difference between tier 2 and tier 3 is huge, so if you take the macro route, you're gonna spend way more hours doing this than you probably should. So, if you are a Hand of Creation, and if you achieve this title, you have completed what is probably the absolute worst grind in this game. You have reached the pinnacle of crafting. You have proven to everyone that you've mastered every crafting job out there. Of course, the abilities across all the crafters are the same nowadays, but this does not diminish the difficulty of this achievement. There is an equivalent title for people that do this on the gathering jobs, which is called the Divine Provider. Also a cool title, but much easier to achieve. And if you combine the Divine Provider with the Hand of Creation, you will unlock the achievement Castle in the Sky, and also be granted probably the rarest or maybe second rarest mod of the game, the Pteranodon. So yeah, for all you aspiring crafters out there, if you really want to show people what you're made of and how good of a crafter you are, I do recommend you get into Ishgard and start grinding. Right now the materials are really cheap because the restoration is over. We don't know how things will look like in Endwalker, but this is a massive, massive, massive flex. And to me, someone who is an Omni crafter and who crafts quite regularly, this is a huge, huge flex. Right? I can't even overstate how impressed I am by people that have this. And that brings us to the conclusion of this video, which has gone on for over 30 fucking minutes. My god, I am so sorry for rambling, as I always do. But now you know. Now you know what I believe are the biggest flexes in this game. I think we have a good combination here of PvE, PvP, crafting, gathering, bit of gold saucer at the start. These are all incredible achievements in their own right, and if you have any of these, display them proudly because only a tiny chunk of the player base have them, and if you have them, show it off. These titles deserve to be flexed. Don't be shy. Let the world know how much of a grinder you are, how much time and effort you put into this game, and how much you love doing what you do in Final Fantasy XIV. I love the variety this game has. It's not all combat dominated. It's not all just PvP titles. These are all, catering to different aspects of the game. We don't have a ultimate or savage housing title yet or glam title yet. Fashion leader is obviously a joke of a title to get, but for housing people, maybe one day we'll have something equally impressive. And that's all I have for you guys today. As always, you can catch me on my stream at twitch.tv/alzahard, where I am trying to get one of the ultimate titles relatively soon, and I'm also working on the blue title. Or just come chill with me, right? As always, if you would like to do me a favor, please subscribe to my channel. I am close to reaching, I think, 4,000 subscribers, and that would make me very happy. If you've reached this part of the video, thank you for spending almost 35 minutes with me. It means the world to me. I have more content coming out soon, so I'll see you boys in the next one. I hope you all have a wonderful time in Eorzea, and we'll see you soon. Al out.